Well, hello and welcome to episode number 12 of The Robin's Nest. And if you are watching the visual version of the podcast, you'll note that we have changed location. Finally, I have been released from my living room and we are here back at Ashton Gate. And we've got a little bit of mowing going on. We've got a little bit of scaffold building going on. But it's all the fun of the fair and it won't stop the enjoyment of our chat with none other than Academy product himself, Mr. Joe Morrell. Are you there, Joe?
I am. How are you doing? Okay?
Yeah, really good. Thanks, mate. Thank you very much for joining us. So whereabouts are you at the moment? Are you at your home? Are you at your parents'? Where are you?
Yeah, I'm at mine in Keynsham. So it's been a good opportunity for me to get to know the area. I suppose the last 3 or 4 months is probably one of the only positives that I can take from it. I'm living in Keynsham with my girlfriend and enjoying it.
So how has lockdown been? Obviously, there was the big shock and the disappointment, of course, that football had to stop, and it was all a bit uncharted territory. How did you get on with lockdown?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like you said, no one's ever had to go through something like this before, and obviously a bit of a shock and a bit disappointing to start with, because you want to keep playing football every weekend, and it's something that you get used to doing. And obviously, we still had a fair few months left of the season, so it was disappointing to start with. But obviously, you always have that hope that it can get restarted again, like it has in the Championship and the Premier League, and that's sort of what we were expecting, and we were gearing up for that. And then obviously, I think as it went on a bit longer, it was obviously evident that for Leagues 1 and 2, it was impossible to finish the season. And obviously, I think they came to the right decision in the end. But from a player's perspective, it's obviously disappointing, because that's your job at the end of the day. And I do feel a bit unemployed at the minute, which is frustrating and not something that I've had to do before. But I'm just trying to find the positives from it, and it's given me a chance to do things that I wouldn't normally have done, and would never have had the opportunity to have done in the football season.
And of course, you can't be involved for Bristol City because, of course, that was a season-long loan. So, yeah, essentially, I guess now it's a bit of no man's land. How are you keeping yourself busy, and what are you doing with your time at the moment?
Yeah, so I think, like I said before, I think when it first started, I was just trying to keep as fit as possible for when the season hopefully restarted for us. And then obviously, as time went on, it became a bit clearer that wasn't going to happen. So I think for a player in my position, it's important to find the balance between working hard and improving on yourself for next season, which I've done a lot of, and then obviously trying to find the time to rest and have the discipline to rest, because that's equally important. Because hopefully when I do come back, it will be a busy schedule, lots of games, and I'll need the rest period that I've had now.
What I'm digging at, Joe, is what you get up to when you're not playing football. What does Joe Morrell do to relax? Are you an Xboxer? Are you a PS4? A golfer? What do you do when you're not playing football?
Yeah, I don't mind a round of golf. I've obviously the golf courses weren't open for a while, and they've only just reopened. So I've had a few rounds of golf with a few of the boys. Taylor Moore, Max O'Leary lives by me. So yeah, that keeps me relatively busy. I don't mind a bit of Football Manager. Now and then. I read quite a lot as well, and that's obviously it's been a good opportunity to do that, which I don't find as much time to do during the season.
Yeah, reading is hard, isn't it? Especially when you're so busy. The golf thing is interesting, isn't it? Because you're a keen golfer, and we'll talk about your involvement with Wales a little bit later on. But Gareth Bale is also a big golfer. Have you ever had the chance to go out and do a round with Gareth?
No, it's a question I get surprisingly often, to be honest, and I always have the same answer. And no, I mean, I don't know him too well. Obviously, I've played in the same team as him, but it didn't cross my mind to introduce myself by asking for a round of golf with him, and he'd probably beat me anyway because he plays a lot more often than I do.
Right, well, let's go back to the start then. You are a product of the Bristol City Academy, of course. That deal was signed in November 2019, keeping you at the club until 2020 with the option of a further year. Let's talk about the very early days. Can you remember kicking a football for the first time?
I mean, I think probably a lot of footballers have had the same answer, in the fact that it's all I can remember doing. It's the one thing that I've loved in my life, and I've probably been kicking a football from as early as I can remember, like I said. So I think it's just always been normal for me. I just played local football when I was younger, just in Bristol, and then had the opportunity to sign for Bristol City when I was 12. So I think that's 11 years now that I've been at the football club, and obviously played with a lot of different players and come up through the age groups with different people, some of who are still at the club now, you know, Max O'Leary, Zach Viner, Connor Evans, players like that, who Joe Woolcott as well. You know, we're all similar age, we're all the same year. So to come have 5 people who've come through the system and made it as a professional footballer, I think is a big achievement for the academy. And then obviously you've got people around me, Lloyd Kelly, Joe Bryan and Bobby Reid were a few years above me. So I think it was a good few age groups that we had, and I think you're probably seeing that now in the fact that, like I said, a fair few of us have gone on to have the start of some decent careers, hopefully.
And how important are those relationships? How important is it to have those people around you through that and now into your sort of adult playing life? Does it make things easier, because it's a fairly tough old route you've chosen to go?
Yeah, I mean, like I've alluded to before, it's obviously tougher than people realise. I think the percentages of players who become professional footballers from the ones who play in academies is ridiculously low. And to have 5 of you in the same age group who've managed to do that is something that not many clubs will achieve and not many age groups will achieve. So I think it does help naturally. You know, I'm good mates with them. We all went on holiday last year, and regardless of where we go in the rest of our careers, we'll always stay in touch, because you know we've experienced a massive part of our lives together, and that's something that not many people can say.
So of that little group, then presumably there's some sort of WhatsApp group. Can you take us through some pen profiles of your academy teammates? Who's the bantersaurus, and who's the quiet one that doesn't want to go out?
I'd say Connor Evans is the quiet one. I mean, anyone who's probably had a conversation with him would say it can be a struggle at times, and that's probably an understatement. But no, we all get on quite well, to be fair, and we'll all have a laugh and a joke now and then. But I think with those lads, I think it's good that we've always found a balance in that we can have a laugh and a joke, but we train hard when we train, and we'll kick each other in training whenever we used to train with each other, and that's what you need as a young player, because it makes you the best that you can be. And I think if you didn't take football seriously, then we would never even be in this position now. So I think, we do have a laugh and a joke, but I think they've always been competitors as well. And if I'm training against them, then I don't like them. And after training, we'll have a laugh and a joke. But when you're with each other and you're playing with each other, then you're not friends anymore, really.
That's an interesting one, isn't it? Because you're coming up against some of your academy fellows in lots of these games, in some of your loans. So it's interesting that you say you have to have a different mindset. Is that a difficult thing to achieve when you are so close?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think if my grandparents were on the other team, I'd probably try and kick them as well, to be honest. I think that's just what I'm like. I think some people can probably keep the same as they are off the pitch on the pitch, and I've never found that I can do that, and it's probably not something that I'd want to do, because I think when I cross that white line, and I'm a different person, and I think that's just always the way that I've gone about it, and always the way that I will go about it, because it helps me perform to the best that I can be. And I think I remember playing against Hacks this year at Rotherham, and I think I kicked him once. Obviously, I tried to go for the ball. I didn't try and kick him, but he sort of gave me a look, and he was a bit like, "What are you doing?" sort of thing. But it's football at the end of the day, and no matter who's on the opposition team, you're going to want to beat them and get the better of them, and that's what I'll always be like.
Do you think that because you started your career so young and football has been your life from such an early age, are there things that you think you've missed out on because of it?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I'll have this conversation a fair bit. I mean, like I said, the amount of players that I've played with coming through the age groups, the sort of stuff that you have to sacrifice to try and become a footballer, even when the percentages are so low, is so great. And I'm fortunate in the fact that the sacrifices for me were worth it, and they were always worth it, regardless of if I made it or not, because it was the only thing I ever wanted to do. And I threw myself into that, and I made sure that I did absolutely everything on and off the field to become a footballer, and I'll continue to do that to be the best that I can. But obviously not everyone can be a footballer, and there'll be people that I've played with through the age groups who have missed out on a lot of their childhood and their teenage years, which everyone says are the best years of your life. You can go out partying and drinking and doing whatever you want, and obviously to be the best that you can be on the pitch and in everyday life training. You can't necessarily do that. So I do sympathise with some people because, you know, they probably missed out on a few years of like I said, socialising with their mates and stuff. And they haven't, you know, had that carrot at the end of being a footballer, and it is tough. But like I said, for me, it's always been worth it.
Can you remember that moment when the terms were agreed and it actually officially became your job?
I think it's a difficult one. I mean, obviously, it becomes your job after you leave school because you go straight into full-time football with your in the youth team scholarship, and then I signed professional on my 17th birthday. So I don't think there was ever a defining moment where I thought, right now I'm a professional footballer. Because obviously I'm still a young player. I'm not an experienced footballer who's had a great career and played this many games. So I'm still trying to be the best that I can. And of course, it's a job for me, but it's something that I love, and I never really class it as a job because I'm lucky in the sense that I do something that I love to do every day.
Now, as an academy product, you were, of course, loaned out to Margate in 2017. They were heading for the 7th tier of the English pyramid. Fast forward 2 years, and then you're playing for Wales, helping them qualify for the Euros. That is an amazing journey for you.
Yeah, it's certainly not a straight journey, and not. It comes back to the sort of expectations that people have of being a footballer. They think it's all sunshine and roses, and it's not necessarily. You know, I think it's probably well documented the sort of journey that I've been on to get to the position I'm in now. And like I said, it's not a straight line. You experience things that help build that resilience, and you know, I've come close to not even being a professional footballer. So I think that gives me that grit and determination to be the best that I can be now because I've got that opportunity. And I think that's something that at the time wasn't a positive. You know, obviously I had some very low moments, and you know, not just me, but for my family and friends, because they're the ones that experience it with you. So I think to have come through that and to be where I am now is an achievement in itself. But you know, it's not something that I'm necessarily satisfied with, and I've got to keep pushing on now to be the best that I can be. But yeah, like you said, there's obviously been some times in my career where it's been more difficult than others, and people will have that, but maybe not to the extreme that I've had.
And what advice would you have for people that are perhaps struggling, whether it be football related or not, with those, you know, very difficult times? What got you through those tough times, Joe?
I think it was just, you know, maybe setting long-term goals and thinking, oh, in 2-3 years' time, I want to do this, or even at the end of this season, I want to do this and that. It's always just been a case of me for being the best that I can be every day, in whatever, to be honest. I mean, if I worked in McDonald's, I'd try and be the best that I can at that. And obviously in football, you get that feedback of how well you're doing because you see it on a match day and you see it in training every day. But for me, I've always just tried to be the best that I can. And, you know, when I'm 65, 70 and sat in that rocking chair and thinking I've done everything I can to be the best that I can in life as well as football. And that for me is something that keeps me motivated, to be honest. Yeah.
Talking of McDonald's, do you have a regular McDonald's order? I can't imagine professional footballers are allowed to eat McDonald's, are they?
No, and if I did, I probably wouldn't say it on here. But no, I'm not a massive McDonald's eater, to be honest. Yeah, I probably prefer Chinese or something like that. But no, I wouldn't say I've got a McDonald's order anyway, that's for sure.
America was once on the cards, also nearly signed for Liverpool as well before opting to stay in BS3. Talk us through those two parts of your career.
Yeah, I mean, so they were obviously different stages. I mean, I think I was in two very different places. I mean, the time of the Liverpool interest was when I was 14, 15, 16, not yet in full-time football, but I'd got to the stage where I was playing for the Welsh team, you know, going abroad and playing against some top countries, Belgium, the Netherlands, Germany, and I sort of felt like I was performing to a good level. And this is the time when, you know, agents start coming in and people start taking notice of what you're doing, and you sort of always have this hype around you, which I felt like I had at that time. And it was, I wouldn't say it was tough to deal with, but it sort of put the expectations of me up a lot, because I think externally people were sort of thinking that I would be this next big player that was going to be in the first team in 2 years, when in reality that was never going to be the case. So I did have the option to go and play for go and sign for Liverpool and other clubs, and yeah, it's obviously well documented at the time. So yeah, I was as close to signing as you can be. Really went up there, looked around, and it was all sorted. And then ultimately, it came down to a chat with the manager at the time, which was Derek McInnes, and sort of the academy staff at the club, and my agent, my parents, and just felt that Bristol City was the right place for me to be. And looking back, it probably was the best decision. But like I said, the expectations of me go up then at 15, 16, when in reality I'm just a kid. And I think to have had that expectation on me didn't really change what I was about and what I did. But I think when you're not at the level that people expect you to be at in 2-3 years' time after that, then people are sort of like, oh, where's he gone? Is his attitude bad? Has he done this, done that? And that was never really the case. It was just the fact that those expectations went up, like I said, and then probably found the next 3 or 4 years pretty difficult. And I think to make my debut at 16 as well, and then to not play again until I was 20, 21, I think. So to have 4 or 5 years between your first and second appearance for a club is something that not many people can say, that's for sure. So those are probably the most difficult years of my career. And to have that so young, I think, like I said before, has only ever just made me hungrier for it now and improved the resilience that I've got.
And there must be something very special about, being at the club that you came through the academy at, sort of being that homegrown player, and then that debut, that famous debut, the senior league debut at Ipswich Town in 2018-19, and Ipswich was actually where you were born.
Yeah, I mean, it is special for me playing for Bristol City. I mean, like I said before, I've been here since I was 12. All of my best mates are season ticket holders at Bristol City, so I've always had that expectation. I think they would have killed me if I'd have ever left, and they probably will if I ever do. So, like, it comes back to the fact that I'm not just doing it for me, but for other people too, because that's what makes this job that I've got great, is the fact that you've got responsibility to make people happy, and it's always something that I've thrived on doing. But yeah, I was born in Ipswich and then moved to Bristol when I was pretty young, 3 or 4. So I can't really remember being in Ipswich too much. But yeah, it's funny how things work, I think. To make my championship debut at Portman Road is something that, I think Ed Sheeran was watching that night as well. So that made it a little bit weirder, I think, a little bit more special. But we won that game as well, which was good, and probably the best moment of me for last season, I think.
Bristol's a very special place, isn't it? For some reason, lots of people come here and never leave, whether it be for university or moving from Ipswich to come and play football. What do you think it is about Bristol as a city that is so special?
I think it's a difficult one to answer. I mean, I've obviously lived here my whole life. Obviously, I've been in Lincoln last season, but I've always been Bristolian, if you like, and not necessarily with the accent. I think that's something people pick up on. I don't have the accent, but I'm pretty much Bristolian. And it's a place that I've loved living for, the best years of my life, going to school and growing up with your mates, and to come through a club like Bristol City is something that I think I've loved, and obviously something that I'd never not experienced. So for me, it's been great. And I think, like you said, anyone who ever comes to Bristol and visits the city, and anyone who ever comes over to see me, has only got good words to say about it. My girlfriend lives with me here, and she's from Southampton, and she loves it. So it's somewhere that I'll be happy to live for however long I do live here, and I'll always have. It's where you grow up, isn't it? So it's always going to have a special place in my heart, that's for sure.
Have you got any favourite hangouts? Have you got any restaurant tips of it? Obviously out of lockdown, but any favourite little coffee shops you go to?
I like Coffee One in Keynsham. So I would go there this morning, especially when the weather's nice. Have a little walk up there. Me, Bailey Wright and Max O'Leary cycled into Bath the other day and went to Makoko, which is a nice coffee place in Bath. So yeah, anywhere really. I mean, I'm not a fussy eater. Any nice restaurant is good. I like L'Osteria in Bristol with the big pizzas. So after a game or something, I might go there. But nothing in particular, no. But I like Coffee One in Keynsham. That's probably mine and my girlfriend's favourite place to go to.
It is like footballers away from football have kind of really changed it. Back in the day, you know, if you're Georgie Best and going out and down the King's Road and doing whatever he did, and now like from what I see of professional footballers, the coffee culture and reading, you know, seems to be really popular amongst you guys.
I mean, at the end of the day, we're normal people a lot of the time. There'll probably be a few nutters in football that give us all a bad name, and that's why our car insurance is probably so expensive, because you've got a few nutters who drive fast cars really fast and crash them all the time. But like I said, we're normal people at the end of the day, and I've come across more people like myself in football than I have, you know, this sort of stereotype of footballers that they're really brash and really loud and love spending lots of money and drinking. And like you said, George Best, I think those days are probably gone now, especially the higher up you go. The demands on your body and the physical and mental demands of football are so great. You need to be able to switch off, and that's something that I probably used to struggle to do. But now I think as I've got a bit older, I can sort of detach myself from football. But obviously that's difficult when there's football on TV 24/7, and I probably am addicted to football in the fact that I'll watch any game of football on TV. So I'm a bit glad that's back now, to be fair, with the Premier League and the Championship.
How weird is it watching those games without the fans there?
Yeah, it is weird. It sort of reminds me of when I used to play in the under-23s and used to have empty stadiums and you could hear the players talk. But I think it helps you concentrate on the game a lot more, and sort of the tactical aspect of it. You can analyze the game a bit more with no crowd noise, and the camera's never panning into the stands to focus on this fan and whatever's going on in the fans. So there's no distractions from the game, and I think anyone who really loves football will sort of appreciate it for what it is. And I think we're all glad to have football back in whatever capacity, because the too much without it were difficult for all football fans, and that includes me. So I think just to have it back with or without crowds is a positive thing.
And Joe, you'll have experienced both, as you say, for the under-23s and otherwise. But can you actually hear, when you're on the pitch playing, can you actually hear the noise of the crowd? Can you hear what fans are shouting, or are you just waiting focused on actual playing?
It depends where you're playing, I suppose. I mean, like you talked about before, when I went on loan at Margate, if someone's shouting at you there, you can definitely hear, because there's probably 100 people in the crowd. But obviously when you're playing at Ashton Gate, it's a little bit different. And it gets to a point where you can't hear yourself think, and you can't shout at other players and get your orders across as well as you can lower down. So I think it does make a difference, and I love playing with fans because it makes you feel alive on the pitch, and it gives you, you know, it makes you feel worthwhile when you're playing. And obviously I can't speak for the players at the moment because I haven't experienced playing without fans this season, but I can't imagine it is the same. And for me, it would, you know, it's only proper football when you've got a full house, and especially at a place like Ashton Gate where you've got all, you know, usually a full house with a great atmosphere. There's nothing better.
Yeah, we miss it for sure. Let's talk a little bit about Lincoln City, because obviously going away on loan it's a bit like sort of going back to university, I guess. A whole new bunch of people that you don't know, having to try and, you know, fit in again. How do you cope with those loan spells?
I mean, yeah, it's probably the second proper loan that I've had, and obviously I went to Cheltenham a few years ago, and that was a full season in League Two, and I felt, and the manager and the coaching staff felt that this was the next stage in my development to go and have a full season in League One. Obviously, not quite a full season in the end, but as many games as I could play, and I loved it. You know, I was fortunate to have gone to a club like Lincoln because it really is a fantastic football club at that level. Fantastic fan base, fantastic management team, and I really enjoyed it. And I felt like I needed to approach it as though I was a Lincoln City player, which is what I did 2 years ago when I went to Cheltenham, and just try and immerse myself in the club as much as possible. You know, and I felt I benefited from that. I had the opportunity to play regular football, which is all I wanted this season, and I think it was a bonus to have gone to a club like Lincoln, because it's a place that I'll definitely always have in my heart, and it's a season that I'll look back on with fond memories, because you know, personally I had a pretty decent season, and obviously the recognition that comes with that is, you know, you talk about international football and whatever. So it's certainly been a bit of a crazy season, not one that I expected, but one that I've been glad that's happened for sure.
And how does it work? Do you move lock, stock and barrel to Lincoln? Do you take the girlfriend with you, or do you still base yourself here and just sort of go up and come back at sort of on your days off and stuff?
Yeah, so anyone that's been to Lincoln from Bristol will know that it's not too local. So my girlfriend stayed here in the house. She's got a job. She's a nurse at the BRI in Bristol. So obviously it didn't make sense for her to come up for me for a year when she's just started a new job down here. So yeah, I went up on my own, lived with two other lads in the sort of clubhouse there, which was brilliant. Loved my time there. Two good lads that I got on well with. They probably stayed up a little bit too late and a little bit too messy for my liking, but no, it was good to live with other people. I think it helped sort of ease the pressure and, like I said before, detach from football a little bit when you're on your way back from training and you're just chilling with them and not necessarily thinking about football all the time, which I probably would do if I was on my own. So yeah, I didn't manage to get the opportunity to come back to regularly, and there wasn't too many local games in League One, whereas there was in League Two before and League Two last year. So I didn't get the opportunity to come back too often, but I think it helped me with my loan spell that I didn't get a chance to come back too often because I was always in and around the city. And if we lost on a Saturday, you feel that on a Sunday, and that's the sort of negative of being a footballer, but it's still as important as that winning feeling.
You did. There was a Bristol Rovers game, wasn't there? I think you were injured though. But did you get any stick from the fans for that particular game?
No, I played in that game. It was home though, so I was obviously the first fixture that I was looking for was Bristol Rovers away, and I think it was second last game of the season. So unfortunately, we didn't get the chance to play that, but it was a game that I was looking forward to a lot because obviously I expected to get some stick, if you like, and some abuse, and I certainly got that. Something that I enjoyed really, because obviously I haven't had that many times in my career. We lost 1-0, which was disappointing, so I couldn't really say too much, but it was a good feeling to play against Bristol Rovers, that's for sure. And I definitely got some abuse which I wasn't expecting, but it's part of the game. I don't like Bristol Rovers. They're not going to like me, so it's part and parcel.
And presumably that just sort of spurs you on a bit more, really, does it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the point of doing it is that they think they're putting you off your game, which for me, anyway, talking from personal experience, is never the case. It sort of does spur me on, and I found I had an okay game that game, so they didn't put me off my game too much. But I think obviously people talk of these stories of going to Millwall in the 80s and stuff, and people being scared to play there. It's not necessarily the case, especially against Bristol Rovers. I mean, if I ever have to go and play at a scary place, then I'll know about it. But I've played at more scary places than Bristol Rovers in my career, that's for sure.
Where's scarier? Go on, let's have your top three.
Oof. I mean, depends what your definition of scary is. I've played, obviously, playing for Wales when I was younger, and I've played in Serbia and Albania, which aren't the most hospitable of places, and you can get some stick there, and places where it's not necessarily that safe to go out at night. But the worst ones for me have always been the ones with no atmosphere, and you sort of don't have that. You can't feel the energy of the crowd, and I've always enjoyed the sort of more the bigger stages. And the worst place that I've ever played is Margate for me, just because it was such a bad memory. I'll never want to go back there, to be honest.
Is there somewhere that you really want to play that you haven't played yet?
Oof. I mean, I think everyone would say the Nou Camp or the Bernabeu, and that's probably the case for me. I mean, I've probably always looked at sort of those atmospheres, and you look at some of the games in Argentina, and I've followed Boca Juniors a bit. Growing up, I used to watch De Rossi for Roma, and then he signed for Boca Juniors. Sort of made me watch their games a bit more, and I think some of the atmospheres in Argentina are unbelievable. And whether I get the opportunity to play there or not, it's probably pretty unlikely. But if I ever do, then that's something that I'll definitely look forward to because of the atmosphere that they create in those games in Argentina, and especially at Boca Juniors. That would be something that would be pretty surreal, I think. But like I said, probably a bit unlikely.
Well, we can only but hope for you. I tell you what, we couldn't have you on the podcast without talking about Wales, and we're talking about sort of international stadium here, and that international career that you've had going up through the age groups, helping your country, and then helping them to qualify for what would have been Euro 2020. I mean, that's an amazing achievement. How do you kind of cope with that in your head?
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, not something that I expected to happen this season. I think if someone would have told me at the end of this season that, or this time last year, that I'd have 6 caps for Wales and would have helped them, albeit a pretty small part in qualifying for the Euros, and would have hoped to have been involved in those Euros, I would have said you're mental. Because, like I said, playing in League One, I probably was a bit sceptical of the fact that, you've got players there who are some of the best players in the world. And for me to be playing in League One, albeit consistently, but at a much lesser level than some of the players, I didn't think that I had much of a chance. But I think the manager there puts a great emphasis on playing regular football. And I think once you get the opportunity, it's up to yourself to take it. And I managed to do that, and he gave me an opportunity to make my debut against Belarus. It was in a friendly, and managed to do okay. So I think football, as in life, it's just about taking opportunities when you get them. And thankfully, I've done that okay this season, and hopefully that stood me in good stead for the rest of my career. Because 6 caps for Wales is something that I'm proud of, but it's not something that I'm satisfied with and happy with. I just want to keep building on that now and progressing my international career as well as my club career.
And are there other sort of youngsters then that have come up through the age groups then that are now appearing in the first team that that are obviously your mates that you're proud to be associated with? Is it like a bit like here really? Do you have another group for the Wales camp?
Yeah, so I think I've been lucky in that regard as well. I mean, it was like we talked about before with the lads that I've come through with at Bristol City. I mean, it's similar to the national teams. Obviously, everyone develops at different rates, but my age group, which was the 1997 age group, had me, Harry Wilson, Dan James, Joe Roden, Chris Mepham. And then you've got the younger ones to me, like Ethan Ampadu, Tyler Roberts. So I think there's a lot of great youngsters in Welsh football at the minute, and that's good that we've all sort of come through together because obviously, like we alluded to before, you've grown up together and you've experienced the same journey as them. Obviously, Dan James, Harry Wilson are both Premier League players now, and that's something that I aspire to be. But I've known them since I was 15, 16, so to be able to put on a senior international, something that's pretty special, and obviously something that you never really expect.
And is it slightly more difficult to maintain those relationships because obviously you're spread out all across different clubs and across Europe, and then obviously only get a limited amount of time to train together. So how do you keep those relationships alive?
I mean, obviously it's difficult with any international teammates because you don't see each other as often as you do your club teammates, naturally because there's less games and they're more spread out. But I think with the mates that I've had for Wales, it's always been the same in the fact that whenever you meet up, you just pick up where you left off. And I'll be this, if I don't see him for the next 5 years or, however long, we'll still be the same the next time we see each other because we've been mates for a while, and we all share the same enthusiasm for football, and we all want to be the best that we can, but we're good mates off the pitch. And yeah, it is a little bit more difficult because you don't stay in contact all the time. But every time we see each other, it's always the same.
Some real experienced players in that squad. Ashley Williams, of course, Aaron Ramsey, Gareth Bale. How much do you learn from players like that in that environment?
Yeah, a massive amount. It's something that I couldn't have replicated in club football because obviously I'm playing with experienced players this season at Lincoln, but it's not the same level. You're probably talking about the best Welsh player to ever play football, and probably the second or another great Welsh footballer is the manager. So I think to have just shared a pitch and shared a training pitch with some of the players that you come up against, I mean, the quality is scary, really. But it's sort of what you expect from you go into it. But I think you learn as much off the pitch as you do on the pitch, and just the way that they carry themselves, and no sort of ego or anything, which is normally associated with, the top footballers, and they have this aura of I'm the best, and that's certainly not the case with the players that we have at Wales. And obviously Ashley Williams this year, not someone who played a great amount for Wales, but again, one of the great Welsh footballers of all time, and a legend of Welsh football. And it's a bit weird because the first time I met him, we played for the same club, but I'd never met him before, never trained with him, so that was a bit weird in that regard. But yeah, he's someone that definitely look up to because of what he's achieved in football.
And what about Gareth Bale? Is he approachable? Could you go and have a chat about Netflix with him?
Whether I could, I'm not sure, because I've never tried it. Obviously, like I said, probably the best Welsh footballer of all time. So I'm not necessarily the most outgoing person off the field anyway. So I think it would have been very unlikely for me to have gone up to him and started having a conversation straight away. But he's just a normal person. That's what I see him as now, because I've had the opportunity to be around him. And he's, like I said, a legend of Welsh football. But when you're sharing a picture of him, and he's a teammate of the day, and I think he wants people to treat him as that, and not this great player who's won 4 Champions Leagues and probably one of the best footballers of all time. To us, he's just a teammate, really.
And how do you cope with that fan behaviour? Because of course, for big fans of Bristol City, or for the clubs that you're playing for Lincoln, obviously you're their heroes, especially the youngsters. So how do you feel when they come up and they want the selfies and they want your autographs? Was that weird to start with?
Yeah, and it's still weird, because I don't see myself as somebody who's achieved a great deal in their career, or I still find it weird that people might look up to me in any way. So it's definitely weird, but I'm always happy to oblige with anything, because at the end of the day, I'm a football fan, and I've grown up a football fan. And I had players that when I was younger I looked up to, and I wanted a picture with and an autograph with. So I think you just have to put yourself in the position of that young kid or whoever it is asking for an autograph, and think that was me one day.
And presumably now, with your Wales cap on, quite literally, there are players that are heroes of yours that you now then come up against and play against. Yeah,
that's been one of the weirdest parts of it, because if someone had told me this year that I'd have played against some of the players that I have, it would have said you're crazy, because especially some of the teams we've played against, and some of the teams we would have played against in the Euros, I think some of the greats of football, and to have just shared a picture of them is definitely surreal at times. But it comes back to what I said at the start. It doesn't matter whether it's my teammate or my grandparents or Luka Modric. I want to be better than them. And when they're on the opposition team, you're going to kick them, and you're going to try and do everything you can to throw them off their game.
A particular Barcelona player comes to mind. In previous interviews, you said you're a big fan of one particular Barcelona player, which you ended up facing up to.
I grew up watching the sort of, in my opinion, the greatest team of all time, that sort of Pep Guardiola Barcelona team. And ever since then, I've sort of had a bit of a soft spot for Barcelona. Me and one of my mates just always used to watch the games and always have conversations about Barca and who they're signing and how they're doing. And obviously Rakitic has been a massive part of that team for the past 5 or 6 years, and has been one of the best midfielders in the world. And obviously being a midfielder myself, he's someone that I look up to. So I think to have shared a picture with him was definitely a special moment. And then it's not even like he was probably the best player on his team, which was even weirder.
We slightly lost Joe's line there. He was talking about Ivan Rakitic, who was a big hero of his at Barcelona that you ended up playing against. When you are in those sort of moments, that qualification for the Euros, how does the celebration go down? Can you is it legal to tell us how you celebrated that game?
It wasn't as big as you might think, because obviously it was the last one of the tournament, last one of the qualification, and we had to win. So I don't think people wanted to sort of organise anything just in case it didn't happen, which is understandable. So I think it was probably quieter than people expect. I had to go back up to Lincoln the next day as well, which was probably a little bit harsh on the gaffer at the time. I think he might have. I thought he might have given me the day off or something, but no, I was back up to Lincoln in the afternoon the next day, so didn't do anything too crazy.
And then I believe within sort of less than 24 hours of that qualification, you were still on the roof at Ashton Gate, having signed the contract to June 22, which must have been a very proud moment for you.
Yeah, I mean, it was something that was agreed before I went away, and then the idea of coming back and doing it the day after, it was certainly a good 2 days, that's for sure. And it's something that I was really pleased to get sorted because, ultimately I'm a Bristol City player. Like I said, I have been since I was 12. So it's the only thing that I've ever thought of doing is playing for Bristol City. And obviously that contract gives me the security and the sort of recognition that the managers and the manager and the club see me in their plans for the future, which is obviously encouraging. I want to play for Bristol City. That's only ever been my idea. I've never thought about anything else really. And I think a contract doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to happen, but obviously it means that you're sort of in the club's thoughts, and hopefully I'll get that opportunity.
And what do you think you have to do to prove yourself there? What is it? Is it just a case of keeping your head down and making sure you can do the best you can? How do you break through and get those regular first team places?
I mean, it's obviously a difficult question for me to answer, but I'm hopeful that if I do get an opportunity, then it's up to me to take it. And I'm constantly working on myself, trying to be the best that I can be. And obviously coming off the back of this season, which has gone relatively well for me to have played 30 senior games in League One and 6 caps for Wales, I think has shown that. But I mean, it's ultimately down to the manager and the coaching staff as to whether they see me as being part of their plans for next season. But in my opinion, I'm just trying to be the best that I can be every day for myself, and hopefully that'll be good enough for the manager and the coaches to have to see. And if I get an opportunity, then it's up to me to take it.
Absolutely right. Well, I think you've done yourself absolutely proud this last season, a fantastic season on loan, and of course those Wales caps. And on top of that, Joe, you're just a bloody nice bloke, quite frankly.
I appreciate that. I always try to. I think that's more important than being a good footballer, being a good person. So that's something that I've always been brought up to see.
Great stuff. Well, maybe we'll see you in one of those coffee houses real soon. Hopefully we'll see you back at Ashton Gate as soon as possible. But for the meantime, Joe Morrell, thanks so much for being on.
No worries. Thanks for having me.